If there's anything to note in any character's kit, no matter what level of play you're on, the first thing you will notice is their recovery. Some of them are good, some of them are... But today, I want to talk about one who I find to be an interesting case. We gonna be talking about Royce, and the depth to his offstage disadvantage which may be lesser known by most. Now if you know anything about this character, one of his main weaknesses, perhaps even his greatest one, it's his recovery. One shot on his double jump or a clean spike on his forehead can be enough to send the young lion to his untimely demise. But what if there was more to it than what meets the eye? Could there be some secret sauce that makes his recovery not as bad as it sounds? Perhaps good even? Or is this swordsman always fated to meet his end when there's no ground beneath his feet? Today, that is the subject we are going to be approaching. Before we get into any of the details, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoy this video and want more content like this. Thank you. First thing we need to talk about is why his recovery is considered subpar by most of the community. For starters, Roy is a fast faller. Compared to the majority of the cast, he will fall downward at a faster rate, and because of his gravity value, he can reach his maximum fall speed faster than most of the cast will. As a result, Roy has less time to pick an option off stage, and his movement can be more telegraphed, making this a strongly restraining factor in Roy's ability to mix up his recovery as effectively as others. Second problem, his up B. While it can be angled, it doesn't have access to his super armor he'd have on startup if he otherwise used it on stage. To angle it would also sacrifice horizontal or vertical distance. This is what leads many Roy players to SD if they aren't careful and precise in its usage. Assuming you missed the ledge, Roy's drift is also very limited after using his up B, which can leave him open to punishment or being unable to reach the ledge altogether. The third thing is his air acceleration. Roy's air acceleration is slow. Despite his astounding airspeed, holding a direction with Roy will take around 26 frames for him to reach his maximum airspeed, which makes it more challenging for him to be tricky with his drift off stage. This means in a number of situations, Roy may be forced to double jump if he wishes to reach the ledge successfully, creating scenarios for characters to track him and rob him if his up B alone can't gauge the distance. With all this said, how could I possibly argue with the idea that Roy is more often than not screwed if he ends up off stage? It's simple. Even if the trajectory of Roy's sword Shoryuken can be predictable and linear, this does not make it easy to edgeguard. The hitbox activates on frame 9 and protects Roy in areas where characters can try to sneak a quick edgeguard on him. This allows our boy to retaliate against overzealous edgeguards. During his up B, Roy also travels quickly, which can make it harder to react to if one isn't predicting his trajectory preemptively. The latter half of the move's activation will also snap to the ledge, along with potentially hitting players standing at the ledge depending on Roy's positioning and his angle during the move's use. This can make Roy harder to 2-frame and force players to think about their positioning if they want to get ready to ledge trap him. Keep in mind though, this is definitely a good option most of the time, but it can be adapted to and hard punished by good spacing or counters. I like to say this option is more or less the same as just trying to reach the ledge and recovering low as most Roy players would do, especially since you might not even be trying to hit your opponent. You're just trying to survive and not get clipped. So when the situation calls for it, up the blazer on them glazes. But over-reliance on this will eventually catch up to you once your opponent starts understanding your timing. So let's move on to... Another thing that might not be as known is the movement properties of Roy's double-edged dance. And no, I ain't just talking about wave bouncing with it, more on that later, but what it does with Roy's aerial momentum in general. Similar to Marth and Lucina, side B will halt the acceleration of Roy's aerial drift and slightly elevate him, and it will be retained in the move's duration. Though, because of Roy's faster fall speed, he doesn't get as much use of it as the former two, but it can still function as a timing mix-up to avoid edgeguard attempts, especially given the low lag of side B allowing you to act quickly. Being able to suddenly change your momentum at any point while in an edgeguard situation can be the difference between making it back to the stage or dying. If the situation calls for it, you can even make use of B reverses to potentially dodge any commitments or to change what angle you recover from, although bear in mind this can be a risky mix-up to go for at times. This is a technique that Goblin emphasized, and I feel like not enough Roys make use of this resource when they're off stage. But what if your opponent begins to call you out for this and start punishing this tactic? The answer is simple, just
weak.
Yes, just air dodge, gang. People underestimate how blessed Roy is to have an air dodge that covers the same distance as Mario's. You don't have to shoot for the ledge every time with up B. You can recover at different angles using his directional air dodge, or avoid edge guards using the neutral air dodge. Which neutral air dodging in itself is a really strong recovery mix-up, since thanks to Roy's astounding air drift, he can continue moving towards the stage while intangible. Keep in mind though, with directional air dodge especially, it can be very committal and punishable if you use it predictably. So let's try. This is kinda similar to option 1, but don't be afraid to go high. Most people are likely to cover Roy for going low since that's our default recovery path. But upping that blazer earlier than most will expect will allow you to soar above potential fatal gimping attempts. If your opponent predicts this and chooses to remain on stage, you can still fast fall towards the ledge using Roy's amazing fall speed. Guess being a fast faller might not have been so bad after all. In addition, you can feint going high if your opponent begins to catch onto this by using your fast fall to instead recover low. Mobility is the key here. Roy's downward and lateral air movement is a tool for you to exploit. Use it to its fullest. It may be your only chance of survival in some edge guarding scenarios. Go high when necessary, and make use of Roy's fall speed in order to mix up your trajectory. But the next one is super important, and it's your double jump is your lifeline off stage. If you lose it, you're probably gonna die, so please be mindful of where you use it. As I mentioned, Roy's air drift is really good, so double jumping is a very strong resource because of it putting you at your maximum airspeed. But double jumping towards the stage all the time is where your recovery can be predictable. Practice when and where you double jump. Maybe double jump high or double jump in place. This is another resource you can use in multiple ways to mix up your recovery, but also remember that it's your most valuable one, and it's the one that people will definitely be looking to clip when edge guarding you. Knowing this character, in most scenarios you might have to use your double jump anyway, but please, again, be mindful where and when you use it, and don't always use it if you don't have to. At the end of the day, even with these tips, you still have to accept that you won't always make it back with Roy. That's just what you sign up for when you play this character. It's alright though. Our boy's got a crazy amount of other stuff going for him in his kit anyway, so you gotta take the bad with the good. And what makes it even better is that now you know it's ways you can play around this weakness. I hope this video helped you. I hope it showed you that his recovery isn't as bad as people be making it sound. Please let me know in the comments what methods you have, any improvisations you have, any opinions you may have on these tips, and maybe I'll make a part 2 for this video. But until then, be safe out here, y'all. This was How to Recover as Roy.